This is a very romantic and very emotional story, so please have some tissues ready before you start reading it. It is also quite a long story, so make sure to set aside some time for it. Okay, here we go. My name is Ava. I am 29 years old and I live in a small town far from the city. I always felt lonely. I had no one to love me, and I had no one to give my love to. All of my friends were married, and they all lived in the city, so I was truly alone. One day I met an old man. He was about 78 years old, and he was very kind. We quickly became friends, and he started visiting me more often. One day while I was cooking dinner, I heard a loud crash coming from the old man's room. I ran over there, and I saw that he had fallen and hurt himself. I called an ambulance and stayed with him until the doctors arrived. They told me that he had broken his hip and that he would have to stay in the hospital for a few weeks. I visited him every day until he was well enough to come home. After he recovered, he asked me for a favor. I knew that something was different. Something in his eyes had changed. He was no longer the same old man that I had befriended. But before I could ask him what he wanted, he spoke. He said, "Ava, will you marry me?" Of course, I was shocked. I didn't know what to say. I thought that he was joking. But when I saw the tears in his eyes, I realized that he was serious. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you," he said. "You are the only one who has ever loved me." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Hadn't he been married? Where was his wife? What had happened to her? Before I could ask him any questions, he continued. "After my wife died, I became so lonely, and I felt like I would never find love again. But then I met you, and everything changed. You gave me hope again. And now, I just want to spend the rest of my days with you." I didn't know what to do. I couldn't believe that he wanted to marry me after knowing each other for such a short time. But looking into his eyes, I saw so much love and devotion. And then I realized that it didn't matter that we hadn't known each other for a long time. I loved him too. Yes, he was old and I was young, but love doesn't care about age. Love doesn't know how to count. Love doesn't see color, race, or age. Love just loves. I took his hand in mine and whispered, "Yes, I will marry you." He cried tears of joy and hugged me tightly. I knew in my heart that this was the right decision. I had found the love of my life, and nothing else mattered. We had a small but beautiful wedding ceremony. All of my friends came to celebrate with us, even though they all thought that I was crazy for marrying an old man. But I didn't care what anyone else thought. I was in love, and that was all that mattered. On our wedding night, we went to a small cottage by a lake. It was so romantic. The moon was shining brightly in the sky, and the stars twinkled like diamonds. We sat on the porch and held each other close. "I can't believe that I'm actually marrying you," I whispered to him. He chuckled and said, "Me neither. But it's going to be an adventure, I promise." He looked at me with his loving eyes and kissed me passionately. I had never been so happy in my life. After we got back from our honeymoon, we moved into a small house near the lake. It was cozy and cute, just the way I liked it. We spent our days swimming, fishing, and hiking. And in the evenings, we would sit on the porch and watch the sunset together. He told me stories about his life, and I listened attentively. He was such an amazing man, and I felt so lucky to have him by my side. One day, while we were walking by the lake, he suddenly stopped and turned to me. "Ava," he said, "I need to tell you something." He looked serious, and I couldn't help but worry. "What is it?" I asked. "Why are you sad?" He took a deep breath and said, "I'm sorry that I didn't tell you this sooner, but I'm dying." I was shocked. "What? How? But how?" He put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Don't be afraid. I'm not going anywhere. Not yet. At least I have a few more months left to live, maybe even a year. and I want to spend every single one of them with you. You are the best thing that has ever happened to me, Ava. I love you more than words can say. And if I could, I would live forever just to be able to spend more time with you. Of course, I was scared. I didn't want him to die, but I knew that there was nothing I could do to stop it. I love you too, I whispered, trying to hold back my tears. In the following months, his health slowly began to deteriorate. He became weaker and weaker, and he needed me to help him with everything. I didn't mind. I loved him so much that I was happy to do anything for him. One day, while we were sitting on the porch, he suddenly grabbed my hand and looked me in the eyes. Ava, I want you to promise me something. I nodded. Anything, I whispered. When I die, I want you to marry one of my friends. I want you to find someone who can take care of you and love you the way that I have. I was confused. But I love you. I know you do, sweetheart, and I love you too. But you are still young, and you deserve to be with someone who can give you children and grandchildren. Someone who can make you happy even when I am gone. Of course, I didn't want to lose him, but I knew that he was right. I was still young, and I did want to have a family someday. Okay, I whispered. I promise. He smiled and kissed me on the forehead. Thank you, he whispered. I love you. I love you too. A few weeks later, he became very ill, and I had to call an ambulance. When the doctors arrived, they told me that there was nothing they could do. He was dying. I stayed by his side and held his hand until his last breath. When he closed his eyes for the last time, a single tear rolled down his cheek. I felt his soul leave his body, and I knew that he was gone. Even though I was heartbroken, I knew that I had to honor his last wish. I promised him that I would find someone new to love me, but I also promised myself that I would never forget the old man who had loved me more than anything in the world. It took me a long time to get over his death, but eventually I met a wonderful man named Thomas. He was kind, caring, and loving, and he made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. We fell in love, and soon we decided to get married. One day while we were walking by the lake, I suddenly stopped and turned to him. Thomas, I said, there is something I need to show you. I took him to the old man's grave and showed it to him. This was my first husband, the old man who taught me the true meaning of love. He may be gone, but I will never forget him. Thomas took my hand and said, I know, Ava, and even though I love you and you love me, your love for the old man will always be in your heart. It's okay to love more than one person, even if they're no longer alive. And that is why even today, whenever I see an old man walking by the lake, I stop and watch him, because maybe it's him. Maybe it's my old man. Come back to see me one last time. The end. I hope you enjoyed this emotional roller coaster of a story. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with your friends. Your support means the world to me. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe so you never miss out on any of my future uploads. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.